You ever have a dream so vivid, so real, that you wake up questioning if it was just your imagination or something more? Now, imagine this. A girl, no different from you or me, has a dream, only this dream isn't like any other. It's not just a jumble of random images or fleeting moments. This dream is sharp, detailed, and haunting. In this dream, she sees the face of someone she's never met before, someone whose existence is a mystery, yet the image feels so familiar, so real, it's almost like she's seen it in another life. But what happens when this image is more than just a product of her imagination? What happens when, after days of obsessing over this dream, she uses AI to bring this face to life, only to find that the face matches someone who's gone missing, someone whose disappearance has left an entire community in anguish? And here's the kicker, no one knew about this girl's dream, no one knew about the face she saw, yet somehow, the AI's creation mirrors reality down to the smallest detail. Now, stay with me here. I promise this is going to be a ride you won't forget. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share a story with you that might just make you question everything you thought you knew about fate, destiny, and technology. This is the story of a girl who unlocked a mystery that no one saw coming. What if I told you that one night, a dream and a girl's curiosity led to a discovery so chilling, it would send shockwaves through her town? What if I told you that this wasn't just a coincidence, but something deeper, something that might just change the way we look at dreams, AI, and the very concept of missing persons? Sounds crazy, right? Well, trust me, you're going to want to hear the whole story. But before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the universe was trying to tell you something, but you just couldn't figure out what? Maybe you've had those gut feelings, those moments where everything aligns, and for a split second, it feels like you're on the brink of discovering something incredible. Or maybe you've had dreams that stick with you long after you wake up, leaving you with an eerie sense that they were trying to communicate something important. Well, this story is like that, but with a twist that will make your heart race. Imagine this. You're a teenager, living in a quiet town, not much happens, nothing too exciting. You wake up every day, go through the motions, and just like anyone else, you dream. But one night, you dream of a person, a stranger. You see their face so clearly, so vividly, it's almost as if you've known them your whole life. But here's the thing, you've never seen them before in your waking life. The dream feels real, too real. But you shake it off, chalk it up to a weird coincidence, and move on. But what if this dream was more than that? What if it was a sign? That's exactly what happened to Emily, a regular high school student with no reason to believe her dreams could be anything more than random flickers of her mind. But one night, she wakes up from a dream unlike anything she's ever had before. In it, she sees a woman, her face, her features, everything so clear that Emily is certain she can draw her from memory. But Emily doesn't just remember the dream, she feels connected to it. It's like the woman in her dream is reaching out to her in some way. Emily's curiosity gets the best of her. What if there's more to this dream? What if it's not just some random image from her subconscious? And so, with the help of artificial intelligence, Emily takes matters into her own hands. She's no expert in AI, just a regular girl with a deep sense of wonder and an insatiable need for answers. Emily uses a popular AI tool, one that's been making waves for its ability to create realistic images from text and descriptions. She inputs the details of her dream, the shape of the woman's face, her hair, the expression in her eyes. Slowly, piece by piece, the AI works its magic, piecing together the woman she saw in her sleep. The image that emerges is perfect. It's almost too perfect. It's as if the AI itself knew exactly what to do, exactly how to recreate the woman from Emily's dream. But here's where it gets even stranger. As Emily stares at the image, a sinking feeling takes over her. The woman in the AI-generated image isn't just some figment of her imagination. No, she's real. Emily takes a deep breath, her fingers shaking as she types in the name of the woman she's created just to see what pops up. And there it is. Her heart skips a beat. The woman she saw in her dream, the woman the AI brought to life, is listed as a missing person. The match is undeniable. But how? How could a dream, a random, seemingly unimportant dream, lead to such a discovery? How could Emily, sitting in her room, have created the exact likeness of someone who had been missing for weeks? No one knew about the dream. No one knew about the AI experiment. Yet somehow, the face Emily saw in her sleep matched the one from an official missing persons report. And now, Emily is left with a question that might just unravel everything she knows about dreams, technology, and fate. Had she somehow known about the missing woman before, or was this something far stranger? The answers are out there. But as Emily begins to dig deeper into this mysterious connection, she realizes that the more she uncovers, the more questions arise. What was the missing woman's story? How had Emily's dream predicted her disappearance, and what role did the AI play in all of this? Most importantly, what does this all mean for Emily's life, and for the lives of the people involved in this strange, eerie connection? Now, don't go anywhere. I'm going to take you through this insane journey, piece by piece, so you can see exactly how everything unfolded, and how Emily uncovered one of the most mysterious connections between AI, dreams, and the disappearance of a real person. Trust me, you're going to want to stay till the end, because this story is more than just a crazy coincidence. It's a mystery that will make you question everything you thought you knew about technology, fate, and the unseen forces that might be guiding us. What do you think? Are we just living in a world where things happen randomly, or is there something deeper at play here? As Emily sat there, staring at the AI-generated image, the weight of what she had just uncovered began to settle in. The room around her, once comforting and familiar, now felt cold and distant, as if the walls were closing in on her. She tried to shake off the strange sense of dread creeping up her spine, but it was no use. Her mind raced, turning over the events that had led her to this point. The dream, the AI, the missing person, it was all too surreal to process, too inexplicable to simply chalk up to coincidence. There had to be more to this, something hidden just beneath the surface. But what? And how far down did this rabbit hole go? Emily wasn't the type to get caught up in wild conspiracy theories or irrational fears. She was just a regular high school student, navigating her senior year like everyone else. Sure, she had an interest in tech and AI. She had spent the past few months diving deep into the world of machine learning, experimenting with various programs to see what they could do. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for the dark turn her curiosity had taken. And then, when Emily confronted MIA directly, asking if she knew anything about the mysterious messages or her computer issues, Mia's reaction was not what she expected. She looked at Emily with an unreadable expression, her eyes darting nervously as if she were trying to keep something hidden. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to tell Emily the truth. "You need to drop this, MIA said, her voice softer than usual. "I don't know what you're involved in, but it's dangerous. You're getting too close, and you're not going to like what you find." But Mia's warning only fueled Emily's determination. What was MIA so afraid of? Was she involved in some way? Or was she just trying to protect Emily from a truth that could shatter everything? The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but with each new discovery came more questions, more uncertainty. Who could Emily trust? Was there a connection between Mia's strange behavior and the warning she'd received? And what was the truth behind Claire's disappearance, really? The deeper Emily dug, the more tangled everything became, until it felt like the answers were slipping just out of reach, always one step ahead. And as Emily prepared to take her next move, she couldn't shake the feeling that the danger was closing in and that her own life might be at risk. The truth, she realized, wasn't just hidden, it was being protected by forces far darker than she could have imagined. But as the walls closed in, Emily couldn't stop herself from wanting to uncover it, no matter the cost. And that's when the real question hit her: who could she trust when everyone seemed to be hiding something? Just when Emily thought she had her bearings, just when she believed she had started to unravel the layers of mystery surrounding Claire Donovan's disappearance, something happened that shattered everything she thought she knew. It wasn't just her life that was at stake now. Someone close to her had been pulled into the web of intrigue, someone who had been a part of her world from the very beginning. And the consequences of what followed would only escalate the danger she had already found herself in. It was late one evening when Emily received an unexpected call from her older brother, Tyler. Tyler was always the level-headed one in the family, the one who kept things grounded, who had a sense of calm when everything around him seemed to be spiraling out of control. But when Emily picked up the phone, she could hear the unease in his voice immediately. "You need to listen to me," he said, his voice tense. I don't know what's going on with you, but I've been getting weird messages. Same as you, I think. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Tyler had always been the one person who could distance himself from drama, who never got sucked into anything too dangerous. She had kept her investigation from him as much as possible, not wanting to burden him or get him involved in something that could spiral out of control. But now, hearing the panic in his voice, she knew that this was no longer something she could keep hidden. What kind of messages? Emily asked, her words coming out sharper than she intended. Tyler didn't answer right away. There was a long pause, and then she heard him let out a sigh, almost as if he had been holding his breath. They're like cryptic, you know? Similar to what you've been getting, I think. Only, there's more. Someone sent me a picture. A photo of Claire Donovan. But it wasn't the same image you've seen. It's different. The same face, but twisted somehow, like she's been distorted. His voice faltered slightly, and Emily could hear him swallow hard. I don't know what to make of it, but the message that came with it said, she's not who you think she is. A chill ran down Emily's spine. It was the same kind of cryptic, threatening message she had been receiving, but now, Tyler had been pulled into this madness. The thought of him being dragged into something so dark, something so beyond their understanding, terrified her. The pieces that had been falling into place now felt more like shattered glass, and with each new revelation, the bigger the mystery grew. Ty, what are you talking about? What do you mean, she's not who you think she is? Emily's words were breathless as she tried to process the information. Tyler's response was quiet but urgent. I don't know, Em. But this doesn't make sense. Why would someone send me this? I barely know Claire. I don't even think I've ever spoken to her. So why me? There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and Emily could feel the tension building between them, the silent understanding that the situation was spiraling out of control. But before she could respond, Tyler's voice broke through again. And there's more. I checked the metadata on the photo. The timestamp, the location, everything pointed to somewhere just outside of town. But here's the thing, the place doesn't even exist. It's not on any map. I tried to find it myself, but when I went to where the coordinates were supposed to lead me, it was just nothing. An empty field. No sign of anything. Emily's mind raced. This was something that didn't add up. The image of Claire, the cryptic message, the impossible location, everything was pointing to something far larger than she had imagined. Someone was playing a game, but the rules didn't make sense. Tyler, her brother, wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was tangled in the web, just as she was, and whoever was behind this knew exactly who to target. I need you to be careful, Emily said, her voice tight with worry. We have to figure out who's behind this, or it's only going to get worse. But we have to trust no one. Not even the people we think we can trust. But before Tyler could answer, the call suddenly cut out. Emily's phone buzzed with a new notification, but when she checked it, her stomach dropped. It was another message, this time, from an unknown number. The message contained only a single line of text: stop asking questions. Stop digging. Or I'll make sure Tyler's next. Her blood ran cold. The stakes had just been raised, and they were no longer just about Claire Donovan's disappearance. It wasn't even just about Emily anymore. Someone, or something, was threatening her family. And now, Emily realized with horror, she was no longer the only one being hunted. Without wasting another second, Emily tried calling Tyler back. But the call went straight to voicemail. Her hands shook as she dialed again, and again, and again, each time the call unanswered, leaving her with nothing but her rising panic and the gnawing feeling that time was running out. As the night pressed on, Emily was bombarded by a growing sense of dread, the kind that made her question everything she thought she knew about those around her. Was the person behind all of this someone from their past? Was Tyler a target because of something he didn't even know about? Could this all be connected to Claire's disappearance in a way no one could understand yet? Emily couldn't afford to think too much about it, but the fear was becoming palpable. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Claire's face, twisted in that AI-generated image. And now, Tyler was caught up in this too. Whoever was behind this knew far more than they were letting on, and they were manipulating everything from the shadows, pulling strings like a puppeteer. The next day, Emily set out to find Tyler, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. She moved quickly, her mind racing with 100 possible scenarios, each more chilling than the last. As she drove through the streets, everything around her felt different, warmer, yet somehow more suffocating, as though the world itself was turning against her. But when she arrived at his apartment, Emily found it locked, the blinds drawn tight, no sign of life inside. She knocked urgently on the door, calling his name, but there was no answer. The panic in her chest threatened to burst as she grabbed her phone and checked for any signs of him, his location, his messages, but everything seemed to have gone dark. It was as if he had vanished without a trace. That was when she noticed it. A single piece of paper, crumpled and shoved under the door. Emily bent down, heart pounding, and slowly pulled it out, her hands trembling as she unfolded it. The words written on it made her freeze. "You're too close to the truth, Emily. And now you'll pay the price." The paper slipped from her hands as her breath caught in her throat. She didn't need to look around anymore, she knew what she had to do. But something had shifted, something had changed in the air. And with it, the haunting question that burned in her mind, demanding an answer. Who had written this? And why was everything she had once thought to be a clue now pointing to her own destruction? Emily was running out of time. The web was tightening, and with every step she took, the answers she desperately sought seemed more impossible to find. And Tyler was gone. The weight of the situation was becoming unbearable for Emily, and as the days passed, the feeling of being trapped inside a nightmare only intensified. Each time she thought she had made a breakthrough, another piece of the puzzle would slip away, leaving her further in the dark. But it wasn't just the case itself anymore. It was the growing sense that something far more sinister was unfolding right in front of her, something she wasn't prepared for, something that had begun to feel personal. It was early the next morning when Emily's world took a darker turn. She had barely slept, tossing and turning, her thoughts a whirlwind of worry and fear. The note, the threats, and the sudden disappearance of Tyler all gnawed at her. She could still hear the harsh ring of his phone cutting through the silence of the night, unanswered, and she couldn't shake the image of his apartment, locked, empty, with that crumpled note under the door. A cold pit settled in her stomach. She had to find him. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. But the closer she got to the truth, the more it seemed like the truth didn't want to be found. Emily had made up her mind to track down every last lead, even if it meant putting herself in harm's way. She didn't care. The desperation to find Tyler, to understand the forces at play, had completely consumed her. So, she ventured out again, heading back to the same part of town where Tyler's apartment was, hoping to get more answers, hoping that somewhere, somehow, he was still out there. But this time, something was different. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. It started when she noticed a black SUV parked a few spaces down from her car. At first, it seemed insignificant, just another car, another person going about their business. But as she drove away, she couldn't help but notice that it had followed her. Her heart pounded harder in her chest, the tension rising as she turned onto the next street, hoping to shake the car off. But the black SUV stayed right behind her. Every turn, every move she made, it stayed with her, too precise, too deliberate to be a coincidence. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she tried to maintain her composure. Was she just paranoid? Or was this the beginning of something far more dangerous than she could imagine? She knew she had to make a decision, and fast. The idea of leading whoever was following her to Tyler's apartment was terrifying, but the thought of going to the police felt even worse. She didn't trust them, not after everything she had uncovered. She couldn't risk alerting the wrong people, couldn't afford to take that kind of chance. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel as she made an abrupt turn into a narrow alley, hoping to lose the SUV behind her. She could feel her pulse racing, the sound of her breath louder in her ears than ever before. When she glanced in the rearview mirror, she saw the SUV make the same turn. It wasn't just a shadow following her now, it was a force, an undeniable presence that knew exactly what she was doing and where she was going. In that moment, the walls seemed to close in on her. She had never felt more alone. The city, once bustling with life, now felt like a vast labyrinth, every corner and every street hiding unknown dangers. She tried to keep her focus, tried to ignore the cold fear settling in her chest. But it was impossible. She had no idea who was behind the wheel of that car, what their intentions were, or what kind of power they wielded. But she knew one thing for certain: they were getting closer, and Emily had no idea how to stop them. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. Her heart was pounding so hard, her breath coming in short gasps. In a desperate move, she slammed on the brakes, throwing the car into a sharp turn that sent her down a side street she hoped would lead her into a safer area. She kept her foot pressed to the gas, trying to outrun the threat behind her. The sound of tires screeching filled her ears, the hum of the engine drowning out everything else. But when she dared to glance back in the rearview mirror again, the SUV was gone. Emily's breath caught in her throat as a wave of confusion and relief flooded over her. Had she lost them? Or had they simply decided to back off? She wasn't sure, but in that moment, she didn't feel safe anymore. It didn't matter whether or not the SUV had followed her. The truth was, she couldn't escape the growing feeling that she was being watched everywhere she went. There was always a presence lingering just out of sight. She couldn't shake the paranoia gnawing at her, the sensation that she was walking on a tightrope, one wrong step from plunging into an abyss. She parked in a secluded lot, trembling as she sat there, trying to calm herself. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Whoever was behind all of this knew her every move, had seen her, tracked her, maybe even manipulated her into this twisted game. There was no more room for doubt. This wasn't just about Claire anymore. It wasn't about Tyler. It was about Emily. She had become the target, and whoever was pulling the strings wanted her to understand that. Her phone vibrated suddenly, breaking the silence. She stared at the screen, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the unknown number flashing in front of her. Slowly, she answered, holding her breath as she waited for the voice on the other end. "Emily," a deep voice said, the words slow and deliberate. "You've been asking the wrong questions for too long. You've been digging in places you should never have touched. And now, you're going to pay the price for your curiosity." She felt a coldness settle deep in her bones. It was the same voice she had heard on those cryptic messages, the one that had threatened Tyler, the one that seemed to always be one step ahead of her. The chill of realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She was in over her head. Whoever this was wasn't just trying to intimidate her, they were out for something far darker, something that went beyond fear. "Listen carefully," the voice continued. "You've made your choices. You wanted the truth. But now, you're going to learn that some truths are better left buried." The line went dead. Emily dropped the phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she stared at the empty screen. Her heart pounded in her chest, the weight of the threat she had just received sinking in. She wasn't just involved in a missing person case anymore. She wasn't just looking for answers. She was now the one being hunted. In the silence that followed, Emily realized with a sickening clarity that everything she thought she understood was wrong. She had been walking into a trap all along. And now, she was trapped. The shadows had closed in, and there was no escape. The cold, tight grip of fear around Emily's chest hadn't loosened since the ominous phone call. But even as she sat there in the eerie stillness of the parking lot, trying to gather her thoughts, something felt off, something she hadn't noticed before. It was subtle at first, a flicker in the back of her mind, but it grew louder with every passing second. She had been so focused on tracking down the mysterious threats and the cryptic messages, so wrapped up in the belief that someone was out to hurt her, that she hadn't taken a step back to ask herself one crucial question: what if she was wrong about everything? It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing something she hadn't even considered. She thought back to all the conversations, the clues, the paths she had been following. There had been one person she hadn't really thought about, someone who had always been there, someone who had been so close to the center of this mystery that it made Emily's blood run cold just thinking about it. It wasn't the faceless person behind the threats, or the anonymous figure who had been following her around town. It was Claire Donovan herself. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. What if Claire wasn't a victim in this story? What if Claire had been the one pulling the strings all along? For weeks, Emily had been assuming that Claire's disappearance was just the beginning of a twisted game. She'd believed that Claire had somehow gotten caught up in something beyond her control, that her fate was tied to some hidden force she couldn't yet comprehend. But now, after everything that had unfolded, after the constant threats and cryptic messages, something felt wrong in the way the pieces had been fitting together. Emily had trusted the narrative that Claire was just another missing person, another victim of some faceless evil. But what if the truth was far darker? What if Claire wasn't a helpless pawn, but the mastermind behind the entire situation? It was hard to even think about it, let alone accept it. But the more Emily replayed everything in her head, the AI-generated image, the cryptic texts, the strange coincidences, the more it became clear that Claire had been in control in ways that Emily hadn't understood. And in the silence of that parking lot, it hit her with brutal clarity. Claire had orchestrated everything. Emily's heart raced, her mind scrambling to piece together the shattered fragments of truth. There had been moments, small ones, when Claire had acted strangely, when something in her eyes had seemed too knowing, too calculating. She had always seemed a little too perfect, too aware of things she couldn't possibly know. Emily remembered the first time she met Claire, how effortless it seemed, how quickly they bonded over their shared interests, their similar passions. But what if that connection wasn't as innocent as it appeared? What if Claire had been manipulating her from the start, drawing her into a web that had been spun far earlier than Emily realized? She grabbed her phone again, her hands trembling as she scrolled through her messages. And then it clicked. She'd been so focused on the idea that someone else was pulling the strings that she hadn't looked closely enough at Claire's behavior, at the oddities in her disappearance. The first clue, the one that had seemed so insignificant at the time, stood out now like a neon sign. Claire had been too good at hiding. Emily remembered the night Claire disappeared, how she'd gone to a party, leaving behind her phone in a spot where it could easily be found by her friends. But the text messages on that phone, those didn't add up. They had seemed strange at the time, like someone was trying to draw attention to the fact that Claire had been in danger. But now, after everything that had happened, Emily realized they were part of a carefully crafted story, a carefully curated mystery to make people believe Claire was a victim, when in reality, she had orchestrated everything. Emily's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of someone knocking on her car window. She jumped, heart leaping into her throat. When she turned, her breath caught in her chest. Standing there, right outside her window, was someone she hadn't expected to see in a million years: Ethan, Claire's ex-boyfriend. Ethan had always been a bit of an enigma in the story, a quiet figure who had seemed on the fringes of everything, someone Emily hadn't really thought about. But seeing him now, standing there with a look on his face that was a mix of fear and guilt, she realized just how wrong she had been to overlook him. The way his eyes darted around, the way his hand trembled as he knocked again, made Emily feel a chill run down her spine. Without thinking, Emily rolled down the window, her voice shaky. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" He looked at her, his eyes wild, as if he hadn't expected to see her, either. "You need to listen to me, Emily. You're not safe," he said, his voice urgent, but low, like he was afraid of being overheard. "I don't know what you've figured out, but you're walking right into something you don't understand." Emily felt the weight of his words settle in her chest, the tension rising between them. She could see the genuine fear in his eyes, and it made her question everything she had assumed. Ethan was never one to show emotion, he'd always been distant, almost cold, but now, he looked like a man on the edge of losing everything. "What do you mean?" Emily demanded, her patience wearing thin. "I've been trying to figure out what happened to Claire. All this time, I thought I was getting closer to the truth. What don't I understand?" Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously over his shoulder. "Claire didn't disappear. She faked it. She's been running the entire thing, from the beginning. I didn't want to believe it, but after everything that's happened, it's the only thing that makes sense." Emily's mind reeled. She couldn't process what he was saying. "You're telling me Claire's been behind all of this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "But why? Why would she do that?" Ethan looked around once more, his face pale. "Because she's not who you think she is. She's been using you, Emily. The AI, the messages, everything, it was all part of her plan. She knew you'd come looking for answers, and now you're in danger. You need to stop." The words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. It was as if the ground had been pulled out from under her, and she was falling, free falling into a new reality that made everything she had believed feel like a lie. Claire, her friend, the person she had trusted, had been pulling the strings all along, and Emily had been too blind to see it. Before she could respond, Ethan turned sharply and began to walk away, leaving Emily frozen in the driver's seat, her mind racing, her heart pounding. She had been so focused on finding the truth, so desperate to make sense of the chaos, that she hadn't realized the truth had been staring her in the face the whole time. But now, with this new revelation, Emily realized something even more terrifying. Claire's disappearance wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of something far more dangerous, something she wasn't ready for. And the worst part? She had no idea who to trust anymore. The revelation that Claire had been behind everything, that the very foundation of everything Emily had been chasing was a carefully constructed lie, shattered her. But what really rattled her wasn't just the truth about Claire. It was the fact that Emily had been so blind to the manipulation, so caught up in her need for answers, that she had walked right into a trap. Ethan's warning echoed in her mind, but she didn't know what to believe anymore. She couldn't tell if Ethan was trying to protect her, or if he was another pawn in Claire's twisted game. The walls around her seemed to close in tighter with each passing second. But she couldn't afford to stand still. She couldn't just let this slide. If Claire was orchestrating everything, it meant the stakes had just been raised to an unimaginable level. This wasn't some missing person case anymore. This was something far darker. Emily had been sucked into a web of lies and deceit, and now she had no choice but to confront the terrifying reality of what had been hidden in the shadows all this time. Every instinct told her to walk away, to run and never look back, but she couldn't. She had already crossed that line, and there was no going back. The problem was, Emily didn't know who to confront first. Should she confront Claire directly, demand answers, face the person who had controlled every piece of this puzzle? Or should she confront Ethan, whose sudden involvement had only raised more questions? He had warned her to stop digging, but she couldn't. Not now. Not when she was so close. But Ethan, he had been Claire's ex, had he been complicit? Was he part of the manipulation, or had he genuinely been trying to protect her? Emily's mind was racing, and with every passing minute, she felt more and more alone in the tangled mess of confusion and doubt. But things weren't just complicated by who she should trust, they were complicated by what was at stake. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was always one step ahead of her, watching her, waiting. The strange phone call from earlier that had sent chills down her spine replayed in her head, the voice on the other end claiming that Emily's curiosity had sealed her fate. She had thought it was just a warning, just another empty threat, but now it felt like something much more ominous was brewing. And then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed again. The message that flashed across the screen froze her blood. It wasn't from an unknown number this time. It was from Claire. "You're getting too close, Emily. I've been watching you. You can't stop this now, even if you wanted to. The truth isn't yours to uncover. Stay away, or you'll regret it." The words were like a punch to the gut. Stay away. Regret it. It was as if Claire knew exactly what Emily was thinking, knew exactly how to push her into a corner where she had no choice but to continue. What had started as an investigation into a missing person case had turned into a dangerous game of survival. Emily realized that every decision she made from here on out would either make her a player in Claire's game or a casualty of it. The realization hit her hard. There was no getting out of this without consequences. She stared at the message for a long time, feeling the walls closing in. In that moment, Emily knew she was faced with an impossible choice. She could try to play Claire's game, take the bait, and go after the truth despite the threats. Or she could give up, walk away, and try to rebuild her life, albeit in fear, constantly looking over her shoulder, wondering when the next strike would come. There was no middle ground. Either path came with its own risks, its own consequences. If she went after the truth, she might uncover something far darker than she could ever imagine. If she backed off, she would never know what had really happened to Claire, to Tyler, and to everyone else tangled up in this nightmare. But the urgency of the situation kept her moving forward. Emily had no idea if she had the strength to face what was coming, but the truth, whatever it was calling to her like a siren's song. The deeper she got, the more it became clear, Claire wasn't just a person in this story. She was the story. And Emily had to face her, no matter how dangerous it became. As Emily drove toward Claire's last known location, a feeling of dread settled over her. The streets seemed darker than before, the familiar landmarks now just fleeting shadows in her rearview mirror. She couldn't stop thinking about the message, the ultimatum Claire had given her. It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. A warning that made Emily question her very existence in this strange web of lies. What had started as a quest for justice had turned into a deadly game where the stakes were higher than she could have imagined. Her heart pounded as she neared the intersection, the moment of confrontation drawing closer. But when she turned onto the street where Claire had lived, she froze. Her headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was Claire. Emily's hands trembled as she stepped out of the car, her breath catching in her throat. There was no escape now. The confrontation she had been avoiding had arrived, and with it, the looming weight of everything she feared. As Emily took a step toward Claire, the air seemed to grow heavier, the tension crackling around her. This was it, the moment that would define everything. Claire looked at her with a cold smile, a glint of something dark flashing in her eyes. "I knew you'd come, Emily. I knew you couldn't stay away." Emily swallowed hard, every instinct telling her to turn and run, to leave the nightmarish puzzle behind. But she couldn't. She had to know the truth. She had to face whatever dark secret Claire was hiding. "You don't understand, do you?" Claire said, her voice low, almost pitying. "This isn't about the truth, Emily. It's never been about the truth. It's about power. And you've played right into my hands." Emily's heart raced. "What do you mean? What are you doing?" Claire took a step closer, her eyes never leaving Emily's. "I've given you the chance to stop, to walk away. But now that you're here, you have to make a choice. The truth or your safety. Pick one." The words hung in the air like a sentence, heavy and final. Emily felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. Could she really walk away from the truth? Could she really let Claire's dark web of lies keep growing, knowing that the stakes were so much higher than she ever imagined? As Claire's smile widened, Emily realized that this was the moment that would change everything. The truth, her future, everything hung in the balance. And whatever she decided, there would be no turning back. Claire's cold smile never wavered as she took another step forward, her eyes locked onto Emily's with a knowing, almost predatory glint. The night air felt thick, suffocating, as if the whole world had come to a halt in that moment. Emily's pulse hammered in her ears, the weight of Claire's words hanging over her like a guillotine waiting to drop. The truth or her safety. She didn't know how to respond, didn't know if there was even a right answer. But before she could even gather her thoughts, Claire spoke again, her voice low and chilling. "You're not the only one in danger, Emily," Claire said, her tone almost teasing now, as if this was all some sick game she was playing. "This isn't just about you. It's about all of us. About everything." Emily blinked, trying to make sense of what Claire was saying. She wanted to scream at her to just tell her what was going on, but the words stuck in her throat. Claire had been the mastermind behind all of this, the missing person, the threats, the cryptic messages, but now it was clear, the web had spread far beyond Emily's understanding. This wasn't just a game about one girl. This was bigger. And Emily was just one piece of it. Claire's eyes darkened, the smirk fading as she took a step closer, almost whispering in Emily's ear. "You thought you were just chasing a missing person, didn't you? You thought this was about Claire Donovan, the innocent girl who vanished into thin air. But it's bigger than that. So much bigger." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Something deep inside her screamed that she wasn't prepared for whatever was coming next. "What are you talking about?" she managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. Claire let out a soft, almost sad laugh, shaking her head. "You don't get it, do you? It's not just me. There's an entire network of people involved. People you know, people you trust. You're just a pawn, Emily. We've been manipulating you the entire time. Every step, every clue, every twist in this investigation. It's all been carefully orchestrated. But now that you're here, you can't back out. You're too deep." Emily felt her stomach turn as Claire's words sank in. The world around her spun as if the ground had suddenly tilted beneath her. Who had been involved? Who had been manipulating her? Her mind raced back to the people she'd trusted: Ethan, her closest friends, even the people who had seemed like strangers but had helped her along the way. They were all part of this. Emily's throat tightened as she realized that someone she thought she knew, had been playing her all along. It wasn't just Claire. It was everyone. Before she could respond, the sound of tires screeching echoed from behind them, cutting through the tension. Emily whipped around just in time to see a black SUV pull up, its headlights blinding her for a split second before the engine died, leaving an eerie silence in the air. The door opened, and a figure stepped out. It was Ethan. His face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. "You need to leave. Now," Ethan said urgently, his voice strained. "They know you're here. Claire, she's not the only one pulling the strings." The words hit Emily like a blow to the chest. Ethan's presence here wasn't just a coincidence. He wasn't here to protect her, he was here to make sure she didn't escape. This was a betrayal on a level she hadn't prepared for, and in that moment, all the walls she had been clinging to shattered. The realization burned through her. Ethan had been part of the plan from the beginning. Just like Claire. Just like everyone else who had manipulated her. They'd been watching her every move, waiting for her to fall into their trap. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, a mix of betrayal and fury. You were part of this?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. "You were part of the conspiracy? You've been playing me this whole time?" Ethan's face twisted in anguish, but it didn't mask the coldness in his eyes. "It's not what you think. I didn't have a choice," he said, his voice heavy with guilt. "We all have our roles to play, Emily. And now you're too deep into this to back out. You've seen too much. You're not leaving here without understanding everything. They'll make sure of it." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Her mind raced, trying to piece everything together. They'll make sure of it. Who were they? The realization hit her like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about Claire or Ethan. This was about a much larger organization, a far-reaching conspiracy that had been operating in the shadows for years. People she trusted, people she loved, were all a part of this twisted game. But why? What did they want from her? Her gaze flickered between Ethan and Claire, trying to find any thread of truth in their words, but everything felt like it was slipping further out of reach. They had all been lying to her, manipulating her from the start, and now she was stuck in the middle of it. There was no escape. No way out. Claire's voice broke through her thoughts, sharp and mocking. "You really think you have a choice here, Emily? You're in too deep. You've already seen too much. It's not just about saving yourself anymore. You have to make a decision, one that will change everything. The truth will either set you free, or it'll destroy you." Emily's breath hitched in her throat as her mind scrambled to make sense of everything. There was no going back now. She had stumbled upon something bigger than she ever could have imagined, and now she had to choose whether to risk everything, her life, her safety, the lives of the people she loved, just to uncover the truth. The stakes were higher than ever. Her future, her sanity, even her survival were on the line. She was no longer just a bystander in this twisted game. She was part of it. And the truth, whatever it was no longer just a mystery to solve, it was a weapon, one that could either set her free or tear her apart. Ethan's face twisted in pain, as if he knew what was coming. "There's no safe way out, Emily. You can't win this game. They'll destroy you. And you'll never see Claire again." Her heart pounded in her chest, every word making it harder to breathe. Claire wasn't just hiding the truth, she was making sure Emily understood that by seeking it, she was entering a deadly world of unknowns. Every person she thought she could trust had turned against her. Every piece of her life was a lie. The truth was now the most dangerous thing she could chase. As the tension mounted, Emily felt a fire rise within her. This wasn't just about Claire anymore. It wasn't even about the truth, it was about survival. And if that meant taking down this conspiracy, this web of lies and manipulation, she would do it, no matter the cost. The real question now was, could she trust anyone anymore? And what would be left of her when the dust finally settled? There was no turning back. She had crossed the line. And now, with the full scope of the conspiracy unraveling before her eyes, Emily understood one thing with terrifying clarity: the game was far from over. It had just begun. The air was thick with tension, every breath feeling like it might be the last. Emily stood at the center of the old, abandoned warehouse, her pulse racing as her eyes flicked between Claire and Ethan. The darkened space around her seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, a sense that the walls were closing in. For the first time, Emily understood just how much danger she was in, not just from Claire and Ethan, but from everything that had led her here. Every single piece of this puzzle had been carefully orchestrated, and now, with the truth hanging just out of reach, she could feel the weight of it bearing down on her. Claire stood just a few feet away, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and something darker, something almost predatory. Her face had softened, no longer the cold, calculated woman Emily had first met. There was a smugness there now, a sense that Claire had been waiting for this moment all along. "You've come so far, Emily. But you're still not seeing the full picture. You still think this is about you, don't you?" Claire's voice was quiet, but sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. "This is much bigger than you. This is about control, about power, about shaping the world the way we want it." Emily's heart pounded as the pieces began to fall into place. It wasn't just about Claire's disappearance. It wasn't even just about the missing people, the coded messages, the cryptic threats. No, this was about something more insidious, a network that spanned farther and wider than Emily had ever imagined. This was about manipulation, about controlling the truth and rewriting reality. The moment Claire had brought up the word control, everything snapped into focus. "You've been using me," Emily spat, her voice trembling with both rage and disbelief. "All this time. You wanted me to uncover the truth, to follow the breadcrumbs, so you could, what? Make sure I was ready." "Ready for what? To join your sick little game?" Claire's lips curled into a smile, the satisfaction clear in her eyes. "You're not wrong, Emily. But it's not about you joining. It's about the fact that you've already joined, whether you wanted to or not. Everything you've done, every step you've taken, was part of the plan. It was all leading you here. And now that you're here, there's no going back." As Claire's words sank in, Emily felt a coldness wash over her, a realization that twisted her stomach. This wasn't just some criminal organization, this was a conspiracy that had been operating in the shadows, pulling the strings of everyone she had ever known. She had been played by Ethan, by Claire, by everyone she thought she could trust. And now, standing in front of her, was the puppet master herself. But the game wasn't over. There was still one final piece of the puzzle Emily hadn't quite figured out. Claire had revealed enough to make everything clear, but she hadn't revealed the full extent of her plan. And that's when Emily noticed it, a small flash of something in Claire's pocket. A device. A phone, maybe, or something else. Emily's mind raced, piecing things together as quickly as she could. Claire wasn't just holding the strings, she was controlling something much larger than that. Something that could destroy everything. Before Emily could act, a voice behind her spoke. "Ethan." His presence was like a weight in the air, and his words hit her like a gut punch. "You can't stop this, Emily. You don't even understand what's at stake." Emily whirled around, her heart skipping a beat. Ethan's face was filled with guilt, regret, fear. And yet, he was standing with Claire, his eyes darting between them like a man caught between two worlds. "You knew what was happening all along," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You knew." "I didn't have a choice," Ethan's voice cracked, the shame in his eyes undeniable. I was trying to protect you. You don't get it. You're already part of this. You've been marked." "Marked?" Emily's stomach churned. Marked as if she was a target, as if her life had been a game. She had been manipulated from the start, playing a role she hadn't even known existed. Claire chuckled darkly. "You think Ethan was trying to protect you?" "No, Emily. He was trying to protect himself. And now, we're all going down together." She pulled the device from her pocket, revealing a small, sleek phone that seemed almost too ordinary for something so deadly. "This isn't just about keeping you here. It's about control. The power to erase people, to rewrite their lives, their memories. I've been using this device to track every move you've made, to influence every choice you've made. It's how I've been keeping you in check. And now, it's time to flip the switch." The words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about hiding truths or digging into the past, it was about controlling the future. Emily's mind raced. This device could change everything, could erase entire identities, manipulate the very fabric of people's lives. It was a tool of unimaginable power, and Claire wasn't just using it for herself, she was wielding it like a weapon, one that could bring down everyone in its path. And worse, she had been watching Emily every step of the way, manipulating her through every decision, every path, every turn. "No," Emily whispered, as the enormity of what Claire was saying sank in. "This ends now." Without thinking, Emily lunged for the device in Claire's hand, but Claire was quicker. She stepped back, a dangerous glint in her eyes. The room seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and before Emily could react, Claire pressed a button on the device, and a loud, high-pitched whine filled the air, followed by a blinding flash of light. Emily's world spun, her body jerking backward as a wave of dizziness hit her. Her legs gave out, and she crashed to the ground, disoriented, barely able to keep her eyes open. But then, as the light faded, she realized the truth. Claire's device had done something more than just blind her. It had activated something within Emily, something she hadn't expected, something that no one had anticipated. The truth hit her like a ton of bricks, and the room around her seemed to warp, the edges of her reality beginning to twist. It wasn't just about Claire's control, it was about who had been pulling the strings all along. As Claire stood there, her face contorted in frustration and disbelief, Emily realized with horror that the final piece had been revealed. Claire wasn't the mastermind. Claire was a pawn, just like everyone else. The true mastermind had been watching from the shadows all this time, and the game wasn't over yet. The last thing Emily saw before everything went black was Ethan's face, his eyes wide with shock and fear. She had seen him in so many moments of weakness, but now, she saw something different. He wasn't just a victim of this twisted game, he was a part of it. And now, it was all spiraling out of control, taking them all down into the darkness. The truth had been uncovered, but it was far from over. This was just the beginning. And Emily was about to face the most terrifying revelation of all. When Emily awoke, she wasn't sure how much time had passed. The world around her was quiet, too quiet. There was no flash of light, no eerie hum of technology that had seemed so omnipresent only moments before. She slowly sat up, her head pounding with a dull ache, the remnants of disorientation still clinging to her like a fog. The room she found herself in was dimly lit, but the harsh, sterile walls of the warehouse had given way to something softer, more human. It felt like a safe place, but she couldn't bring herself to trust it, not yet. She had learned too much, seen too much to believe in anything so easily. As she tried to push through the haze in her mind, a voice broke the silence. Ethan. He was standing just inside the doorway, his face unreadable but full of something that resembled concern. The last time they'd spoken, everything had fallen apart. He had betrayed her, or maybe it had been the other way around. She couldn't even remember the moment when the line between truth and lies had blurred so completely. "Emily," he said softly, taking a cautious step forward, as though testing the waters between them. "I'm sorry. For everything." The words felt hollow, the weight of them sinking into the pit of her stomach. She wanted to say something, to scream at him for everything that had been done to her, everything that had been done to them, but she didn't. She couldn't. There was too much pain, too many questions still left unanswered. But as he stood there, eyes filled with regret, Emily realized something crucial. The world she had been living in wasn't just twisted by manipulation, it had been shattered by it. And the pieces weren't as simple as good versus evil. There were no clear sides. There were only people, broken and searching for answers, just like her. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said, her voice quieter than she meant it to be. "But I'm trying to understand. I don't know if that makes sense." Ethan didn't respond right away. He stood there, seemingly caught between wanting to reach out and the crushing weight of his own mistakes. His eyes dropped to the floor, as if the guilt of what he had done was too much for him to bear. "I never wanted you to get involved. You have no idea what I was trying to protect you from," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But I see now. I see how wrong everything was. I just never thought you'd get caught in the storm, too." It was the first honest thing he'd said to her in weeks, but it didn't change anything. Not really. The damage had been done. The web of lies, the manipulation, the secrets, it was all still there, lingering in the space between them. But Emily, in that moment, realized something else. She had been part of it, too. She had followed the breadcrumbs, dug through the clues, all the while thinking she was just an innocent bystander, but in truth, she had been an active participant. Even her search for Claire, for the missing people, had been manipulated, twisted to fit into someone else's plan. She couldn't just blame Ethan, or Claire, or anyone else who had been a part of the conspiracy. She had walked down this path willingly, even when she knew something didn't feel right. It wasn't just the others who had been deceived. It was her, too. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all crash down on her in waves. The truth, the whole truth, was that there was no neat resolution to this. The conspiracy wasn't just about one villain or one big revelation. It was about people who were broken, who were manipulated, and who were trying to survive in a world that had taken everything from them. It was about the consequences of seeking the truth, even when the cost of it could destroy everything you held dear. Emily had uncovered a small part of it, but there was so much more still hidden in the dark corners of the world she had no access to. The truth didn't always set people free. Sometimes, it chained them to a fate they couldn't escape. And then, just as the silence began to stretch between them, there was a sound, a small, almost imperceptible ping. Emily's gaze snapped to the table across the room, where her phone had been left forgotten. A new notification blinked on the screen, and she felt her blood run cold when she saw the name. It was from a number she didn't recognize. Her hand trembled as she picked it up and unlocked the screen. The message was short, but the words hit her like a hammer. The game isn't over yet. There's more to this than you know. We'll be watching. Emily's heart raced, a cold sweat breaking out along the back of her neck. The message was cryptic, threatening even, but it was clear. Whatever had begun, whatever forces had been working in the shadows, hadn't been extinguished. The conspiracy was still alive, still unfolding, and somehow, she was still tangled in it. She looked up at Ethan, who had seen the message too. His face paled. "You didn't know, did you?" he whispered, his voice hoarse with fear. "There's more to this. So much more." Emily couldn't speak. She just stared at the message, her mind reeling. The conspiracy, the missing people, the betrayals, it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. She had believed that by uncovering the truth, by taking down Claire and Ethan, she'd found closure. But there was no closure here. There would never be closure. The truth, it seemed, was an endless cycle of questions that never stopped, a web that never stopped spinning. And for all Emily's pain, for all the moments when she thought she could finally breathe, she realized she was no closer to finding peace than she had been when this nightmare first started. As Ethan looked at her, his face pale and haunted, Emily made a decision. She wasn't going to let them control her anymore. She wasn't going to be part of their twisted game. But the road ahead wasn't clear, and the dangers were far from over. She had thought she'd found the answers, but now, she knew that the most dangerous question of all was the one that had no answer. What if the truth wasn't meant to be found? The last thought she had, as she stood there, trying to steady herself, was that there would always be more to uncover. The conspiracy wasn't just some isolated incident. It was a part of something far bigger, something far darker, and Emily had only just scratched the surface. As the screen of her phone went dark, the echo of the message hung in the air, a chilling reminder that some truths were better left undiscovered. And as the door behind her creaked open, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something else was waiting for her out there, in the shadows, something far more dangerous than anything she had faced before. The game, as she now knew, was far from over.